The afternoon sun burned over the quiet suburb of Willow Ridge, the kind of neighborhood where mailboxes were identical, lawns measured like carpets, and everyone smiled a little too wide. My wife, Emily, had just come home from the hospital where she worked long shifts as a trauma nurse. She loved our home, not for the HOA rules or the prestige, but for the peace it gave her between battles at work. But that peace shattered the moment a man in a dark uniform parked in front of our house. He stepped out wearing mirrored sunglasses, a utility belt, and a fake police badge that gleamed in the light. His shirt said, HOA Enforcement. Not a real department. Just an illusion of power. Emily was watering the garden when he walked up, clipboard in hand. Ma'am, he barked, I'm Officer Daniels, with the Homeowners Association Compliance Division. We've had multiple reports about unauthorized decorations on your porch and unregistered guests parking in front of your property. Emily looked confused. Decorations? You mean the flag? The man frowned. Yes. That flag is not HOA approved. You'll need to remove it within 24 hours or face a fine. She blinked, then smiled, calm, polite, the way she always handled arrogance. That's my husband's service flag, sir. Navy SEALs. For a brief moment, the man's confidence wavered. Then he smirked. Rules are rules, ma'am. Nobody's above them. Not even military families. Emily's hand tightened on the watering hose, but she said nothing. Years as a nurse had taught her how to stay composed under pressure. All right, she said gently. Could I see your ID? He flipped his badge open for half a second. Too fast, like someone who didn't want you to read the fine print. Emily's instincts kicked in. Something was off, still. She didn't argue. My husband will be home soon, she said. Maybe you can talk to him. Daniel's smirk deepened. We'll see about that. I'll be back tomorrow for inspection. As he turned and strutted off, she took a quiet photo of his license plate. That's where I came in. I was halfway through a training evaluation at the base when Emily texted me. A man claiming to be HOA enforcement just threatened fines. He gave off weird vibes. I called her immediately. Her voice was steady, but uneasy. He wasn't official, Mike. He didn't even have the right insignia. Stay inside, I said calmly. Lock the door. I'll handle it. By the time I pulled into our driveway, the sun was gone, and our security cameras were already uploading footage. I watched the clip twice.
No legitimate badge. No HOA insignia.
Just a man with an ego and a fake titled, I wasn't angry, not yet. In my world, anger clouds judgment, precision wins wars. The next morning, I put on a plain black polo and waited outside with a cup of coffee. At exactly, Daniel's truck rolled in again. He parked crookedly, stepped out, and strutted up our walkway like he owned it. Morning, I said evenly. He looked at me, trying to gauge my tone. You must be the husband. We've got a problem here. That flag's still up. I nodded slowly. That's right. Well, he continued, you're in violation of HOA section. Save it. I interrupted, holding up my phone. I spoke to the real HOA office this morning. They've never heard of you. His expression flickered. Excuse me? You're impersonating an officer, I said. That's a felony in this state. I'd like to see your credentials again, slowly this time. He hesitated, hand hovering near his fake badge. You don't know who you're talking to. I took a step forward, calm, composed, quiet. Oh, I know exactly who I'm talking to. But you clearly don't. He sneered. What's that supposed to mean? I smiled faintly. It means I've spent 20 years identifying threats before they realize they're threats. You're not the first man to wear a badge he didn't earn. His confidence cracked. You can't prove anything. I raised my phone again. Actually, I already did. The sheriff's department ran your plate number 15 minutes ago. The truck's registered to a private security company, one that lost its license 2 years ago for harassment. His face drained of color. You called the sheriff? Not just them, I said. The HOA president, too. She's waiting for you at the community office right now. He stammered, glancing toward his truck. I was just doing my job. No, I said quietly. You were trying to intimidate a woman alone at home. That's not a job. That's cowardice. For a second, silence stretched between us. Heavy, tense, electric. Then, flashing lights turned the corner. 2 sheriff deputies pulled up, stepping out with measured authority. Mr. Daniels, one called. Step away from the property, please. He froze. This is a misunderstanding. The deputy cut him off. We already spoke with the HOA board. There's no enforcement officer under your name. You're coming with us. Emily opened the front door just as they cuffed him. She looked at me, relief flooding her face. I gave a small nod. Everything was under control. As they drove him away, the deputy stopped by our porch. Commander Hale, right? Yes, sir. He smiled faintly. Your wife handled this better than most civilians would have. Smart woman. Luke Dather. Pride in my chest. Always has been. That night, over dinner, Emily finally laughed, the tension melting away. He thought he could bully me with fake authority. I smiled. That's the thing about fake power. It collapses when real power shows up. She tilted her head, teasing. You mean you? I laughed softly. No. The law. Integrity. Truth. But deep down, I knew the truth ran deeper. I'd seen real intimidation, war zones, hostage negotiations, covert missions. But this was something else. This was how fear grows in peaceful places. How people in uniforms they don't deserve prey on kindness, that I wasn't going to let it happen again. The next week, I attended the HOA meeting myself, in plain clothes. The president, a polite woman named Linda, addressed the members nervously. It seems one of our former security contractors impersonated an officer. We're reviewing all policies and will increase verification protocols. When the meeting ended, she approached me. Commander Hale, thank you for stepping in. I heard about your wife's composure and your discretion. I nodded. No need to thank me. Just make sure this doesn't happen to someone else. She hesitated. Would you consider consulting for us? Security oversight. Risk mitigation. I chuckled. You're offering a Navy SEAL a job at an HOA? She smiled. We could use someone who knows what real discipline looks like. I thought about it and agreed. Not for the money, but for the principle. Over the next few weeks, I worked quietly with the HOA, setting up new safety systems, digital verification, and public awareness sessions. Word spread fast. Neighbors who once grumbled about rules now thanked Emily for standing her ground. But it wasn't over yet. A month later, I got a letter, anonymous, handwritten. You made an enemy out of the wrong people. Watch your back. I read it twice, then smiled. Whoever sent it didn't understand what kind of man they were threatening. That night, Emily found me cleaning my old field journal, something I hadn't touched in years. You think it's connected? She asked. Probably, I said. But cowards write letters. Soldiers write history. She smiled. You're not going to do anything reckless, are you? I kissed her forehead. I already did the only thing that matters. I told the truth. Weeks passed. The fake cop was charged with impersonation, trespassing, and harassment. The security company that had once employed him was blacklisted from every community contract in the county, and as for Emily, she started hosting neighborhood safety workshops, teaching people how to verify credentials, report scams, and recognize manipulation. People listened, because truth, spoken calmly, carries more weight than any badge. One evening, as the sun dipped below the rooftops, she stood on the porch again, same flag waving gently in the wind. A neighbor passing by called out, Hey, Emily, that the same flag that started it all. She laughed softly. The same one. It's not coming down. When I stepped beside her, she handed me a cup of coffee. The light turned golden, the air peaceful, between power and strength. I smiled.
Exactly.
Power shouts. Strength whispers. She leaned her head against my shoulder. I'm glad you're home. I looked out over the quiet, safe street. So am I. The flag rippled again, reflecting the sunset. Not just fabric and thread, but memory, sacrifice, and meaning. And somewhere out there, another man in another uniform might think twice before pretending to have authority he never earned, because real power doesn't shout. It stands its ground, silently, unbreakably, and with purpose. The calm after Daniel's arrest didn't last long. For a few weeks, everything seemed back to normal. Emily returned to her hospital shifts, neighbors smiled again, and the flag still waved proudly over our porch. But peace has a way of feeling too quiet when you've lived in chaos. I'd been trained to sense tension before it erupted, and I could feel something simmering beneath the surface of Willow Ridge Point one evening. As I was reviewing HOA security reports, I noticed something odd. Multiple invoices signed off under neighborhood maintenance and enforcement. The vendor? The same company Daniels had worked for, SafePoint Security. That company had been blacklisted. There shouldn't have been a single transaction. Yet here they were, digital payments approved, signatures from board members, and dates that matched his inspection visits. Someone wasn't just careless. Someone was complicit. Emily walked in, setting her hospital bag down. "You've been staring at that laptop for an hour. Trouble." I turned the screen toward her. SafePoint's still getting paid, months after being banned. She frowned. "That's impossible. Didn't the HOA president fire them?" "She did," I said, which means someone above her reinstated them quietly. Emily's expression hardened. "You think Daniels wasn't working alone?" I leaned back, the pieces fitting together.
No. He was just the front man.
Someone higher up has been using fake enforcement to extort homeowners. Extort. Think about it, I said. Random fines, threats, fake notices. People pay to make them go away. The HOA sees the transactions as maintenance fees. Nobody questions it. Emily folded her arms. "So, what do?" I smiled faintly. "Same thing we did in the field. Collect intel before the first move." The next morning, I went for a jog around the neighborhood, wearing a discreet lapel camera clipped to my shirt. Old habit. A man I hadn't seen before was patrolling near the gate, heavy-set, bald, wearing a reflective vest with HOA Safety Patrol printed on the back. Another uniform that didn't belong. I stopped. "Morning." He nodded curtly. "Residents only beyond this point." I raised an eyebrow. "I live here." He hesitated.
Right.
"Sorry, sir. Just enforcing new entry rules." "New rules?" I asked. "Board approved last week. All guests and deliveries need authorization from HOA enforcement." There it was again, that word. Enforcement. Not management, not security. Enforcement. I played along. "Who's in charge of that?" "Director Wallace," he replied. "You'll get a notice soon." "Thanks," I said and jogged off. Back home, I ran the name through county records. Director Wallace wasn't listed anywhere in the HOA's legitimate filings. But I found a Thomas Wallace tied to a company named Tidegate Consulting LLC, a shell corporation with the same address as SafePoint Security's old office. Now I had my link. That evening, I met Linda, the HOA president, at the local cafe. She looked exhausted, her fingers tapping the mug nervously. "Mike, I don't know what's going on anymore. The board's been making decisions without me. They're pushing through new budgets, new contracts. I'm being shut out." I leaned forward. "Have you ever heard of Tidegate Consulting?" Her face went pale.
Yes.
"They handle compliance logistics." I was told it's temporary. "It's not temporary," I said. "It's a front. Wallace and his team are bleeding the HOA dry." Linda's voice trembled. "How deep do you think this goes?" "Deep enough that they hired fake cops to scare residents into silence." She swallowed hard. "What do we do?" "We expose them," I said. "But we do it quietly." Over the next week, I built what I called Operation WillowNet, a simple legal trap. Using open source data, I mapped every transaction between the HOA and Tidegate. Then I connected with a friend from the SEAL community, now a cybersecurity analyst for the FBI's white-collar division. I didn't ask him to intervene. I just asked him to verify what I found. 3 days later, he called me back. "Mike, your instincts are still razor-sharp. Tidegate's connected to 6 other shell firms across 3 states. They've been funneling community funds for years. Someone's running a suburban racket." I exhaled slowly. "I figured." He chuckled. "You still planning to handle this quietly?" "Always." He paused. "Then you'll need evidence strong enough that no one can bury it." "They'll try." "Then I'll make it public," I said. That weekend, Willow Ridge hosted its annual community fair. Every homeowner was required to attend, HOA rule. I knew the corrupt board members would all be there, including the mysterious Director Wallace. I wore casual clothes, my phone synced to the small lapel camera again. Emily was by my side, pretending to browse stalls while keeping an eye on me, her calm presence always my anchor. Halfway through the event, I spotted Wallace, tall, silver hair, expensive watch, flanked by two men in dark polos. He looked like every corporate executive I'd ever interrogated overseas. Clean, confident, untouchable. I approached with a smile. "Director Wallace?" He turned, surprised. "Yes, Mike Hale," I said, offering a handshake. "We haven't met." His grip was firm.
Ah, comment Hale?
"I've heard of you. The board appreciates your help with security." "I'm glad to hear that," I said. I had some questions about recent invoices from Tidegate. His smile flickered. "Those are confidential." "Of course," I said easily. "But since I'm consulting, I thought transparency might help the community." He straightened. "There's nothing to hide." I leaned in slightly.
Good.
"Then you won't mind if I present your company's payment records at the next meeting." For the first time, his expression hardened. "I'd be careful about what you imply, Commander." I met his gaze, calm, steady. "I don't imply, Mr. Wallace. I verify." He forced a laugh, turned and walked away. Emily joined me quietly. "You got him rattled." "Not enough yet," I said. "He's going to make a mistake soon." The mistake came faster than I expected. 2 nights later, a black SUV idled near our driveway. The engine was off, lights dimmed. But I saw the glint of a camera lens from inside. I didn't confront it, not directly. Instead, I called Linda. "Record the next board meeting," I told her. "Don't say a word. Just let them talk." She agreed. At the meeting, Wallace announced new HOA safety policies, including the reinstatement of Tidegate as the exclusive enforcement agency. But he slipped, bragging that our partners ensure compliance through any means necessary. That phrase was all I needed. Linda sent me the recording that night. I compiled it with the payment data, Daniel's arrest file, and the footage of Wallace's team patrolling without authorization. The result was a 20-minute documentary-style report, time-stamped, verifiable, undeniable. The next morning, I uploaded it, not to social media, not to the HOA website, to every homeowner's personal inbox through the verified HOA email list. Within 2 hours, the neighborhood was on fire, not with chaos, but with awareness. Homeowners demanded an emergency vote. Local news vans rolled in. The county's fraud division opened an investigation. Wallace tried to spin it as a misunderstanding. But when confronted with evidence, even Thebes liar runs out of script. He was arrested within the week. That Sunday morning, Emily and I sat on the porch again, coffee steaming between us. She smiled, watching kids ride bikes down the now peaceful street. "You didn't even raise your voice once." I chuckled. "Didn't need to." She tilted her head. "You think it's over?" "For us, yes," I said. "For them, it's just starting." She reached over, squeezing my hand. "You always say power doesn't shout." I nodded. "It doesn't. It signs the deed, files the report, and lets the truth speak." She laughed softly. "You'd make a great teacher." "Maybe one day," I said. "For now, I'm just happy knowing no one's ever going to knock on your door pretending to be someone they're not." The flag above us fluttered again, catching the morning light. This time, it didn't symbolize defiance. It symbolized peace earned through strategy, not strength. Sometimes, the most powerful battles are the ones fought without a sound. And as long as people like Wallace believe fear controls the world, I'll keep proving them wrong, quietly, legally, and relentlessly. The quiet after Wallace's arrest didn't feel like victory. It felt like pause, the kind of silence you learn to fear in combat. Emily called it peace. I called it recon. Every instinct in me said the job wasn't finished. You don't build a fraud ring that size without protection. And protection meant someone higher, smarter, and still free. 2 weeks later, I found a plain white envelope in my mailbox. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a single sheet. "We know you've seen the surface. Let us show you the roots." Beneath it, a time and place, a small diner off County Road 8. I didn't tell Emily. Not yet. When I arrived, 2 men sat in the back booth. One was tall, clean-cut, the other older, with a calm, unshakable presence. They didn't introduce themselves until I sat down. "Commander Hale," the older one said, sliding a small badge across the table. "Special Agent Mendez, Federal Bureau of Investigation. This is my partner, Agent Ross." I didn't flinch. "You've been following the HOA case." We've been following you, Ross said bluntly. Your documentation of the Tidegate shell companies triggered something bigger than you know. You might have just stepped into a $60 million property laundering operation. Mendez leaned forward. The HOA wasn't the goal, Commander. It was the pipeline. These neighborhoods are fronts. Funds move from shell corporations through fake maintenance contracts, then into real estate trusts in 3 states. Quiet, clean, invisible. I nodded slowly. And Wallace.
A pawn, Mendez said.
Mid-level operator. His arrest rattled the network. We've had radio silence since. But now, he slid a folder toward me. Inside were photos. One stopped my breath. Daniels, the fake HOA cop, leaving a county courthouse free. He posted bail under a new name, Ross said. And, before you ask, no, it wasn't us. Someone with real money paid it. I stared at the photo. He's going to run. Mendez shook his head.
No.
He's going to finish what he started, or die trying. That's what these guys do. I exhaled, leaning back. So, what do you need from me? Eyes on the ground, Mendez said. You know Willow Ridge better than anyone. You already have trust in the community. Help us monitor, quietly. I smirked. You're asking me to spy on my own neighborhood. He gave a small smile. You are a SEAL commander, Mike. We're not asking you to spy. We're asking you to observe. That night, I told Emily. She didn't like it, but she understood. You always find a way back into the fire, she said softly, half proud, half afraid. This time, I said, it's not combat. It's cleanup. Over the next few days, I noticed patterns. A new construction company was working near the HOA storage yard. No permits, no signage. I asked around. No one had heard of them. Late-night deliveries came in unmarked vans. Paperwork moved faster than concrete. IT wasn't random. It was reactivation. I began documenting timestamps, faces, vehicles. I sent everything to Mendez. Each time, he replied with one word. Received. Then one evening, Emily found something that tied everything together. She was balancing HOA invoices for the Volunteer Finance Committee when she noticed a recurring expense paid monthly to a land resource liaison. The dress, a warehouse registered under a federal contracting firm. This isn't local, I whispered. This is national. Emily nodded. You think the FBI knows? They will. 2 nights later, Mendez called. We're raiding the warehouse tomorrow. We'll need your eyes one last time. I agreed, against every part of me that wanted to keep Emily safe. She tried to stop me. You've done enough, Mike, but I couldn't. Not when the web reached this FARD. At dawn, I parked across from the warehouse, camera rolling. The place was quiet, too quiet. No trucks, no workers. Then movement. A single SUV rolled up, headlights flashing twice. A signal. Mendez's voice came through the earpiece. Hold position. SWAT's 10 minutes out. But I knew that sound. A diesel engine idling without rhythm. I'd heard it in Afghanistan, before a convoy ambush. Something was off. Pull them back, I said sharply. It's rigged. What? Mendez asked. Warehouse's been cleared. They're expecting you. And then, the explosion, the fireball tore through the air, blowing out windows and flipping a patrol car across the lot. I ducked behind my truck, feeling the shockwave hit like a hammer. The warehouse collapsed in on itself, steel melting like wax. Static filled the line. Then Ross's voice. Mendez is down. Repeat, Mendez is down. My heart clenched. By the time I reached the site, emergency crews were already pulling survivors out. Mendez had taken shrapnel to the leg, but he was alive, barely. His hand gripped mine, bloodied but steady. You were right, he gasped. They knew someone tipped them. Who? I demanded. He smiled weakly. Someone close. He passed out before I could ask more. The FBI sealed the site. The next day, every news outlet called it a gas leak. But we knew better. I went back through every file, every transaction, and found it. A single email from Linda, our HOA president, sent 3 days before the raid at Toy Froze. Linda, the woman who'd cried over being shut out, had been in it the whole time. She'd fed them my evidence, my movements, everything. Emily saw my face as I read it. No, she whispered. She helped you. She helped them more. I said I forwarded the file to Ross. Within hours, Linda's home was under surveillance. She tried to flee that night, but never made it past the county line. The FBI caught her within cash and a suitcase full of fake contracts. When I saw her in custody, she wouldn't look at me. "You don't understand," she said quietly. "They would have killed me. People like you," I said coldly, "always say that after the damage is done." A week later, Mendez woke up in the hospital. I visited him, standing by his bedside. He grinned through the pain. "You did it, Commander. It's over." I shook my head. Not yet. Wallace might have been a pawn. Linda was the middle link. Someone else gave the order. He nodded slowly. "You're not wrong. We traced payments offshore, Cayman accounts tied to a holding company owned by Tri-West Developments." "Real estate group?" I asked. "Front for a private equity firm," he said. "And guess who sits on their advisory board?"
Who?
He handed me a photo, a senator shaking hands with a corporate executive. The same senator who'd once campaigned on neighborhood revitalization. Mendez smiled grimly. "You wanted the roots? That's where they end that night." I walked home under a quiet sky. Emily waited on the porch, a blanket around her shoulders. "You look tired," she said. "Just finished something big." I replied softly, "Is it over now?" I looked out at the neighborhood. The calm streets, the soft porch lights, the silence that used to mean safety. "No," I said. "But maybe it's beginning again the right way." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "You didn't need to fight, did you?" I smiled faintly.
No.
Just needed to tell the truth louder than their lies. The news hit every outlet at once. For most people, it was another political scandal. For me, it was the end of a mission I never asked for. The mission that started with a fake cop at my door and ended with a senator's name on a classified document. The Bureau called 3 days after the explosion. Mendez was recovering. Ross was leading the interagency task force now. "They wanted me in D.C., Commander Hale," Ross said over the phone. "You're the key witness. Congress wants to hear from you directly." I didn't want to be a symbol. I'd spent my life in shadows, silent, efficient, unseen. But when corruption hides behind neighborhoods and flags, silence becomes complicity. So I agreed. The Capitol was colder than I remembered. It had been years since I'd stood under its marble archways. Inside, flashbulbs popped like distant artillery. Reporters shouted questions I ignored. Inside the chamber, a semicircle of senators and representatives waited behind microphones and expressions of feigned neutrality. One of them, Senator Grayson, looked nervous. His name had shown up in Mendez's files, buried under layers of offshore entities. Ross stood near the back, his jaw tight, a silent nod of respect. I sat, placed my statement on the table, and raised my right hand. "Do you swear to tell the truth?"
Ido.
And for the next 2 hours, I did what I told them about Wallace, the fake HOA cop who thought intimidation was authority. About Daniels, who turned fraud into business. About Linda, who betrayed her neighbors for fear and greed. And about the explosion that killed 2 agents who had just tried to do their jobs. But I didn't stop there. Behind the shell companies, I said, my voice echoing through the chamber, were federal contracts approved by committees led by members in this room. Neighborhood renewal projects that never existed. Maintenance budgets that went straight into private accounts. Citizens paid HOA fees that ended up in Cayman trusts labeled community resilience funds. The room went silent. One senator shifted uncomfortably. "Commander Hale, are you implying that federal oversight was complicit in this scheme?" I looked him in the eye.
No, sir.
"I'm stating it." Gasps rippled through the audience. Cameras flashed again. I could see Emily in the back, her hand pressed to her mouth. Proud, terrified, both. Another senator leaned forward. "Why didn't you go to the press?" "Because the press wouldn't stop them," I said. "But the truth on record can." When the session ended, I stepped into the hall. Reporters surged forward, microphones outstretched. I said nothing. Ross met me halfway down the corridor. "You just blew open a decade of silence," he said quietly. "Then it's about time someone heard the noise." I replied. He smiled faintly. "You're not going to fade back into civilian life after this, are you?" I shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe I'll start teaching people how not to get played by their own neighbors," Ross laughed. "You'd make a hell of an instructor." The weeks that followed were chaos. Indictments dropped. Bank accounts froze. Developers vanished. The senator resigned for health reasons. The FBI closed 37 shell entities tied to the Tidegate network. Linda testified under protection, her voice shaking but clear. Wallace's plea deal exposed every signature that kept the fraud alive. For the first time in years, Willow Ridge was quiet, genuinely quiet. No patrol cars pretending to be law enforcement.
No hidden fees. No threats.
Just kids biking down clean streets and old neighbors waving again. I spent my mornings on the porch with Emily, coffee in hand, sun warming the boards I built myself. You look lighter, she said one morning. Because it's done? I said. Really done? I smiled. As done as anything ever gets. She leaned against me. You didn't need to fight this time. You exposed it. That's what command is, I said. Not pulling triggers, pulling truth out of the dark. A month later, Mendez came to visit, walking on a cane but smiling. We sat in the backyard, the late afternoon breeze carrying the smell of cut grass. You know, he said, you could have taken a job with us. Internal Affairs could use someone like you. I chuckled. After this? I think I've done my share of bureaucracy. He grinned. So what now? I looked toward the hills, the land that once almost got stolen. Maybe I build something honest. A foundation, maybe. Teach people how to fight back the right way. He raised an eyebrow. You mean teach civilians tactical justice? Exactly. Knowledge is defense. He laughed. Still a SEAL at heart. Always, I said quietly. The year passed. The congressional hearings turned into reform bills. The Community Oversight Transparency Act passed unanimously, requiring every HOA in the country to publish open access financial records. My name was mentioned in the credits of a government report, but I didn't care. Recognition was never the point. One afternoon, as I was working in the shed, Emily walked in with her phone.
You should see this, she said.
It was a news clip, a young woman in another state exposing her HOA for illegal kickbacks. She said she learned how to track financial trails from her testimony. Emily said softly, but I smiled. That's the real victory. When the next generation fights smarter. Later that evening, I drove out past the old warehouse site, now an open field. Wildflowers grew where concrete had once burned. For a long time, I just stood there, the sunset bleeding into gold and crimson across the horizon. In another life, I'd watch skies like that from battlefields oceans away. But this was peace. Earned, not granted. As I turned to leave, I saw Ross's truck parked by the road. He stepped out, hands in his pockets. Figured I'd find you here, he said. Couldn't resist one last debrief. I said with a grin. He nodded toward the field. You know, the Bureau's naming this case after you. I frowned. That's unnecessary. Maybe, he said. But it reminds people that one man, one neighborhood, can still shake the system. I didn't answer. I just looked out at the field again. The breeze carried the sound of wind through the grass, steady, free, untamed. That night, as I lay beside Emily, she whispered, Do you ever miss it? The SEAL life. I thought about it for a moment, said, Because at this time, I fought for something bigger than orders. I fought for home. She smiled, resting her head on my chest. Then, that's your final mission.